Our Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that if people left out forbidding the unlawful, Allah may send torture on them in this life before the hereafter. And nowadays the unlawful has been widely spreading, and we should forbid it whenever we're able to. Among those people who are spreading the unlawful are those who liken God to His creation. They have an ugly belief. Before you hear what they believe in a moment, I will first tell you about the correct creed, the creed of Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jamaa, the creed that all Muslims worldwide share, which is that what complies with the Qur'an and the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah Ta'ala says in the Qur'an, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. The verse means nothing resembles Allah at all. From this verse we understand that Allah is not like His creation whatsoever. Whatever is among the attributes of the creation does not befit to be attributed to Allah. And among the attributes of the creation is having a body, having hands, having a face, having eyes. All these are created. God created them, and He is not attributed with having any of these. He is not like His creation. Whoever goes against this belief would be contradicting the Qur'an, and hence by that would not be a Muslim. However, what those Mushabbihah believe is that is, they believe that Allah has a body. They worship an image that they imagine that does not exist, but they imagine an image that has a body, that has hands and eyes, that sits on the throne. And there is no such a body on the throne. This is their belief, and they try to convince people of their belief by misinterpreting verses of the Qur'an. Brothers and sisters in Islam, know that the Qur'an contains muhkam verses and mutashabih verses. The muhkam verses are those verses whose apparent meaning is clear. That is like the verse that I just mentioned, which is لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. The verse, the meaning is very clear. Nothing resembles Allah at all. And there are mutashabih verses whose apparent meaning is not taken. If the apparent meaning were to be taken, it would contradict the muhkam verses. And the verses of the Qur'an definitely do not contradict each other. So the scholars do not go by the apparent meaning of the mutashabih verses. Rather, one says these verses have a befitting meaning. And there are those scholars who interpreted a meaning that is befitting to be said about Allah. But these are the trustworthy, knowledgeable scholars, such as the verse Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arshi istawa. This verse is among the mutashabih verses. The apparent meaning is not taken, so we believe it has a befitting meaning. And some scholars said that the meaning is that Allah Ta'ala subjugates al-Arsh, which is the biggest creation size-wise that Allah Ta'ala created. And this does not contradict the verse لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. However, the Mushabbihah misinterpret the verse by saying or by claiming that Allah sits on the throne. Brothers and sisters in Islam, you and I know that what sits has a body, has an upper part and a lower part. It means it is composed. Whatever has a body is composed, has an upper part, a lower part, is created. It means it is not befitting to attribute to Allah, for Allah, as we said, is not like His creation. This Mushabbihah group, those people who liken God to their creation, they went even further, and they claimed that God has actual physical hands and eyes and the face. They even say he has a shin. They claim to be following the verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. They say, but we do not know how these physical traits actually are. Yet by them claiming that Allah has physical attributes, they've already contradicted the Muhkam verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, which clearly means that nothing resembles Allah at all. They misinterpret the verses of the Qur'an and they try to back up their claim by mentioning mutashabih verses in ways that they misinterpret. You will now hear one of them speak and you will see what an ugly belief these people have about Allah.
When we discuss Aqidah, we're right there, man. I say to any person on earth, Allah has a face. Allah has two eyes. Allah has two hands. Allah has a foot. Allah has a shin. All these are confirmed in the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And while I believe that, I also believe that لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. There's nothing like unto him, and there's nothing and no one co-equal or comparable to him. There's nothing like Allah. We can't imagine, we can't fathom the realities of these attributes.
Brothers and sisters in Islam, I urge you to learn the fundamentals of the creed, to always remain steadfast on the belief that Allah is not like His creation at all. God created bodies and He is not a body. God created eyes and face and hands and He is not attributed with any of these. Teach this to your beloved ones so that they do not fall into the trap of those Mushabbihah who claim that Allah is attributed with physical traits, and by that they fall into what contradicts the Qur'an. May Allah Ta'ala end our lives on the correct creed of Ahlus-Sunnah, the creed of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam.